Is it true we only use 10% of our brain? Are we really in control of it? Can exercise and meditation shape it differently? Brain expert Robin explains.
Disclaimer, not a real expert.
Hi, and welcome to our program. Today we have a very special guest, brain expert Robin. Welcome, Robin.
Hi. Definitely an expert. Yeah.
So today's topic is the brain.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell us about it? What is a brain?
What is a brain? It's this thing, that is inside your head and my head, and it defines much more on who we are than we actually think. The brain itself, it's like only 2% of our body mass, but in terms of energy, 20% of the energy we use goes to our brain, because our brain really controls and brings all the information together on how we should behave from every moment on the day, right?
So even things that we don't really think about, like breathing and heart.
It all happens in there. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So let me just explain what the brain is about, what the different parts is that we have, and let's work from there. So if we would take it as we have it here, it would be something like this. I won't be drawing on this thing because it's very beautiful. I got it from the Steno Museum in
that's nice.
here in Aarhus. Yeah.
Thank you, Steno Museum.
So it would look something like this, right? And it consists of four main parts that all have their certain specific functions. Mm-hmm. Let's say that. Because you said the breathing and I don't know the things that we take for granted, that we don't think about, our brain is doing that. Mm-hmm. That's actually all happening here in the stem of our brain. So that's where you have your heartbeat and your temperature control and all the fact that you have to breathe. It all happens in here. It also makes sense. It's closer to your body, let's say. Mm-hmm. But then actually the main thinking part that is happening in your brain happens in this big part in the top, and that actually consists of a few different parts. So if you think about making decisions or doing calculations or anything like this, let's say you have to do 3 + x = 5. That will happen in the frontal part of your brain. That's where you do the reasoning. That's where you do. Okay. That's where you think. So let me draw a light bulb here.
Such an artist.
Yeah. Right. But your brain also gathers all the information that comes from the different things that you feel. And that actually happens in this part of the brain. So here we have the parietal brain. And that's where you... let me draw enough digits here. So that's where you the touch. All the different things that you feel. Also your language part of your brain, for example. That's
okay.
That's all here.
You said it's what we feel. Is it what we feel physically, or also what we feel? Like inside.
So your emotions, I'll come to that later.
Okay.
That will be a different part of the brain. So this is real. All let's say our senses, the things that we feel with our hand. But for example, here you can also see which part of the brain are dependent on what your hands feel, and which part is dependent on what your knee feels or so. Okay. And there is a big priority towards the things that we feel in our head and in our hands, because that does also make sense. We use our hands and our head for a lot of stuff. If our knee feels the tail of a cat, it might not be as important as when it is in front of your face. Okay. So this is what happens here in the parietal lobe. Then you have a part in the back, which is called occipital. And this part is where your vision is located. Okay. So it's actually So
it's a full part only for vision.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it makes a lot of sense because we use our eyes a lot and we process a lot of information there. And it's actually a bit interesting because here would be our eyes, right? It would be, the front of your face would be here. So, but the information is actually processed here. You might have at some point experienced that when something hits you in the back of your head, then you see stars, or your vision is blurred a bit.
That's where the expression comes from.
Exactly. Yeah.
Science.
So then we have a big other part, which is here, and that's the temporal lobe.
Okay.
And this is where you experience feelings. For example, this is also where you hear. Can I draw ear? Something like this. Yeah. This is the part where you auditive experiences, but also your learning. So a big part of your memory is actually here in this temporal lobe.
Okay.
And it is never really only in a specific part of it. There's always a lot of communication going on between these different parts. Okay.
And how does that communication work?
So let me first finish the whole brain, because we have a part that we skipped there. Mm-hmm. And then let's talk about what our brain consists of. We have these four big parts which actually take up 80% of our brain. But that's what we think about as our main brain functions. But a lot of on the inside, we have what is called the limbic system that I cannot draw on top here, but where our hormones are created are these things that is also a bit of a crossroad between what is happening in our body and what is happening in our thinking kind of brain or in what we feel. Mm-hmm. That's also a part where you have your long-term memory also can be found in the middle of the brain. And then there's one big part that is here at the back, which we call the cerebellum, and that is Can I draw something like this? It keeps you in balance, okay? So
it's like physical.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what is important for the control of your body. So that's all.
So imagine if someone is like kind of clumsy, is it related to that part of the brain?
Yeah, might be something wrong with this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's actually something in your brain that makes you clumsy.
Yeah.
Fun. Then you were saying how the communication
So all of this in our brain is actually made up of a lot of neurons. And when I say a lot, it's
here comes the big numbers.
Here comes the big numbers again. How many zeros do you want?
I'm scared. I don't know.
This is the amount of neurons that we have in our body, in our brain, and that's 86 billion of those. So a neuron is basically a single cell that looks a bit like this. And now let's see how good my drawing skills are. So it might look a bit like a star shape, whatever, but it might have a long tail to it. Zip. Mm-hmm. And the tail it uses to communicate with other neurons, because the neuron itself, this is what we call the gray matter in our brain. All right. But the long tail that comes with it is the white matter, and that's actually the connections between the neurons. Okay. There's not really information stored in a neuron in the way that you can store information by calling this neuron a 0 or a 1 that you would do in a computer to store information. It's really the connections between all the different neurons that make up our memory, that make up who we are. And that's constantly that's constantly changing. Mm-hmm. I mean, constantly new neurons are formed and go away. Some neurons are being damaged and being restored, but for sure these connections make up. Like if we are learning, we're literally making new connections between different neurons. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I heard that we actually only use 10% of our brain. How accurate is this?
It's not. That's
simple.
Yeah, it's no, it's a saying indeed that only 10% is really useful. That's definitely not the case. I mean, you saw here on what the different parts are actually doing in our brain. It's even that important that, like, most of the time we're using all these different parts at the same time without even noticing. It's not because you're thinking that these parts are not really active in your brain. They might be. You might have less neurons that are constantly communicating with each other, but it is still it is still operating. It's still working there.
So, what affects our brain? Are we actually in control of it?
We're definitely in control of it to some extent, but I would say that it's constantly our surroundings that are influencing what we think and how our brain behaves. Constantly new, as I said, connections that are forming, but also within our own bodies, we're competing with some other organisms that live there.
Okay.
For example,
Competing?
Yeah, no, I
happening?
mean, some of the things that we think or that we feel that we suppose that come from our own feelings are actually coming from some microbes that live around in our body. So you
scary.
might not know, but you have more microbe cells in your body than you have cells of your own in your body, and also they kind of live together with you. It's difficult to say that they are really living inside your body and being some different entity or so. You are yourself, your own genetic material, and so on, plus these microbes, because these microbes also depend on
parasites. Or something.
It's not a parasite at all. It's just it's life forms that really live together with you, and are also even important for you. Take for example the bacteria in your gut. These bacteria, they need to break down the food that you digest, right? So if you are eating a lot of food that they don't really like, they will start complaining, or they will die off, or whatever. So it's actually
dramatic.
But it's actually a constant feedback between yourself or your brain, let's say, and the microbes that live within you. Take for example the fact that if you eat healthy food, this might be you might not be pulled towards a pear and rather eat a burger, but that's just really dependent on what kind of microbes that you have there. If you have these if you eat a lot of healthy food, let's say, then you have a lot of these microbes that can easily digest it, and that can get along with this fiber-rich meals. But it also means that if you eat it for a long time, then you really grow this kind of microbiome within your own body, and they want it. They expect that you don't eat a burger, but they crave for vegetables when you are eating that burger, because you have this healthy lifestyle, and because you have these bacteria that are growing so big, and that tell your brain, okay, it's time for veggies now.
That's good.
Yeah, it's a good way, definitely. So it means that the habits that you get it's not only changing your brain connection, it's also changing the bacteria that live in you.
Yeah, but that can also be tricky if it's the other way around. Like if you're used to not such a healthy lifestyle, it's also really hard to change it back.
For one example is that in one study where they figured out mice that don't have a certain gut microbes, so microbes in their intestines. If you take them away, they experience a different kind of anxiety, for example. So it can really like creep in these mice's head, and also in our bodies. So keeping, a healthy mind, healthy body, it's really much more intertwined than we think. Yeah.
Okay. So what else in our body is affecting our brain?
It's a lot. Well, it's stuff that we make ourselves as well, right? So, for example, your thinking might be changed by a certain hormone that is going around in your body, but this hormone is also made by your brain itself. So it's exactly a constant feedback mechanism.
Okay.
Maybe it makes sense to talk a bit about these different hormones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I'll write.
Please explain.
I'll write
Expert, Robin.
I'll write the fun ones down. So the
Yes, we only want the fun ones.
The kind of happy hormones. Okay, so four of them are really important. Where do I still have some space to put them? Maybe I can put them right here. Okay, so one of them is called dopamine. And that's actually a very fun one. So every time you experience some pleasure, let's say you really crave for a piece of chocolate, you eat it, and then you feel like, this feels nice. But also, if you see the sunset or whatever, it can be any different things. Then you get a release of dopamines in your head, and you have a reward system right in the middle here of your brain that feels like, okay. This is something really nice. Yeah. So, for example, also think about when you're hungry. Then you eat something. Let's say that you're like super hungry. You eat something and you feel really good afterwards. It's because you have this shot of dopamine, and you have a memory system that is very closely related to your reward system. So if it feels a lot of dopamines, then it will say, okay, what I did just now feels very good. It means I should do it again.
Yeah. So you can kind of become addicted.
You can, and it's good to be addicted to food because otherwise you die. But this kind of dopamine system can also be changed exactly as in the same way. But let's talk about that afterwards. So dopamine is kind of your pleasure hormone, let's say. Okay, so another one is serotonin. And this is what depends how your mood is, for example. So if you feel a general good mood during the day or not. So serotonin is like this. I feel relaxed. I feel good kind of hormone. Yeah. Then you have oxytocin. And this is this kind of loving hormone. So if you feel bonding with someone, it can be in a loving relationship, it can be with friends. This kind of feeling that you have when you're among people that you love, you create a lot of oxytocin. Also, when you hug someone, you can have a shot of oxytocin in your body that is sent out by your brain, but it's also changing whatever is happening in your brain. Maybe this oxytocin is so present that other parts of your brain are on standby for a second because because you need this kind of feeling, right? So yeah, and then you have a.
That's really sweet, though.
Yeah, your body is sweet, can be sweet for you. And then you have a last one that is quite important for you. It's endorphins, and this is kind of a hormone that keeps your stress down. Let's say. So this is kind of a stress related hormone. If you have a lot of endorphins, then you won't feel stress so much. So yeah, these are kind of the pleasureful hormones that are around in your body. You have a real bunch of them. You really have a lot that are all having a specific task. Think about testosterone or estrogen. That's all different hormones that define a certain thing that should happen in your body. But it really depends on when it is released.
So it basically hormones control physical things and like how you feel, like mood things.
Yeah, it depends your mood. It depends your it depends how you physically are. But again, it's very related, right? So you might behave in a different way if you have a certain hormone in your body. So it might not be an exactly physical. Literal physical trait, but it might change your behavior and therefore changing your physical appearance, right? Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a cycle, kind of.
Yeah. It works in a feedback loop constantly. Yeah.
Okay. So what about external factors? What else can affect our brain?
A lot of things. An obvious one is drugs. Right, we have a can of beer right here, and alcohol is a very good example for something that can really change how our brains work and can really change connections in our brain.
So can we actually compare the effects of drugs and alcohol, which is something that is like so accessible.
Yeah.
Can we actually compare it?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been talking about this dopamine thing, right? If you eat, then you get this dopamine response, and then you know, okay, eating is something pleasurable. I should do this more often. You have the same kind of response happening with drugs, and then I'm including alcohol because it's no different from taking cocaine or nicotine or something like this. You might have the same kind of response in your dopamines.
Okay.
How is that? For example, for alcohol or also opioids like heroin or so, it really can trigger a lot more dopamine than is normal at a certain point. So it means that your reward system will also be triggered a lot, meaning that it will remember.
But that should be good, right? In theory.
In theory, it should be good if this is something that is healthy for your body. Yeah. But let's say the case of heroin, you get your reward system gets so much triggered that you need this, and that you actually are switching off other brain functions when you are really craving for this one thing in life.
Okay, so it's good to have this or to stimulate this if it's a reasonable amount, like to not take it too extreme, also with a substance that is not good for you.
Yeah, and it really depends on what kind of drugs. Alcohol is for most people reasonable in the way that it doesn't become an addiction, but for quite some people in our society, it does become an addiction, and it's exactly because of this reward system. And it might be that it all depends. Every brain is really different. Maybe your brain doesn't get so much dopamine from other stuff. Maybe your reward system never really gets triggered, but if you drink alcohol and you feel it really getting triggered, you feel like, okay, this is the thing, and you can get really addicted to it. If you are healthy in life and you get a lot of rewards from other things in life, then you might think, okay, this alcohol is a nice add-on, but it's not necessary for me. But it might happen with other drugs, and exactly the reason I say heroin is because it can be such an immense response that your brain gives to it. I mean, this might be so much bigger reward than from any other thing in life that you really get hooked to it and you get addicted to it. Yeah.
So what about psychedelics? How can like drugs make you see and feel and experience things that are not really there?
Yeah, so some drugs that can really create shortcuts in a brain or create new connections that you didn't really experience before. So connections that are normally switched off can be actually triggered a lot by certain drugs. I don't know for psychedelics exactly what would happen, but another example, would be MDMA or ecstasy. This is a drug that really can get your serotonin level up a lot. So your mood gets you get on a very high mood, and this is not necessarily you also have this dopamine response, but if this response is not so big, then it might be less addictive than another kind of drug. So that's an example. For another example is this endorphin that you have with alcohol a lot as well. So endorphin, remember that's what put your stress down. You feel really relaxed. A lot of drugs share this that you feel calm and relaxed, and you don't feel pain so much anymore. That's when you drink a lot of alcohol, you have this endorphins also going up. And again, it can feel nice, but if it means that other things might be switched off, or you don't focus on other things anymore, you might not feel that you're in pain. Let's say that you're completely drunk and you fall off your bike, and you might not remember or you might not feel it, but it might still be something bad that happened to you. So it's good to have these around, but it's also good to have these in balance.
Yeah. Okay. So about another thing that affects our brain or can, my mom used to tell me that I cannot sleep with the phone next to me because the radiation is going to do something bad. So what can you tell us about this?
So there's a lot of evidence around that says that the way that we use our phones or electromagnetic radiation in general is not affecting our health, not affecting our brain. So there's really nothing to worry about sleeping next to your phone. What is to worry about is what you're doing on your phone. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we don't really do for a long time so far is being on social media or being so close to digital worlds. As we have been doing, like the rest of our human ancestry, didn't have this, but there's getting some evidence now that the way we use it, we're also changing our dopamine level, because we get a lot of these. If you scroll through TikTok and you see something nice, you get a shot like so fast and so many a day. Also that your pleasure level in general goes a bit down. Maybe you can really create certain connections in your brain that say, okay, this amount of dopamine that I'm having now is actually normal, because you get so much information on TikTok that one day that you're not using it, you might crave for the same kind of dopamine, or when you're with friends, you don't feel it that much anymore because you get used to something else.
Yeah. So basically everything goes back to these hormones. But is there actually something that physically changes your brain, like for instance mental illness, or like can you actually see it physically?
Definitely. I mean, there's also some evidence that's since we use social media so much, and we are we get so many short-term rewards that our frontal brain is really a bit hampered in that way. So we used to think through stuff less. Our reasoning becomes less, and you really see some parts of the brain that can shrink because of this digitalization. I'm not saying it's anything bad or so. It's just we have to learn how to deal with it in the long term. We have to understand that these things can really change our attention span. We cannot be attentive so much anymore, and that's what I'm saying in this frontal lobe. Is your attention can really go down because we're used to these short moments that we experience on social media.
But what about mental illnesses?
So also there, if you have a depression, for example, then you might see that as a hippocampus that is actually shrunk. So that's one part of the brain which is in control of your memory, which might actually be changing your memories, and the fact that negative emotions come through much more than positive are. So definitely with different mental illnesses, you can have different parts of the brain that either the connections between the neurons, as I said, or some gray matter itself that is actually shrunk because of this, or that's actually changed because of a certain mental illness.
And can you actually reverse that somehow?
Yeah. So our brain is it's super flexible, and that's a good thing about it. We can definitely mess it up a lot by different drugs or by a mental state, but there's a lot of evidence that meditation can really help and reshaping your brain in what you want it more to be. Also, physical exercise is one of the things that can be so beneficial, and I'm really preaching. It feels like, but this physical exercise can be not only good for your body but also for your mind.
Okay, so now for the grand finale, Robin, a round of fast questions.
Good.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so is it true we only use 10% of our brain?
No.
Are we in control of it?
No.
Is radiation reshaping our brain?
No.
What about exercise and meditation?
Yes.
Thank you. And that was it on the brain. Thank you so much for coming, Expert Robin.
Thank you.
And thank you for staying with us. See you next time.